Hi folks, and welcome back to Mountain Glen Farm. I am super excited today because I'm launching a new audio video series of one-on-one interviews I conducted with some of the bigwigs in the grazing world. So Joel Salatin, Daniel Salatin, Jim Garish, Ray Archuleta, and Greg Judy. And I was able to do this because I attended the Stockman Grass Farmer Gathering that was hosted at Polyface Farm in Virginia. And I was there with the South Pole Association, but was able to conduct some of these interviews kind of in the off hours, and just really thankful that Stockman Grass Farmer and all the speakers let me do that. So thank you all. One little plug in here for Stockman Grass Farmer. If you don't know what that publication is, you need to. It's a really awesome magazine, both online and a physical magazine that comes out, I think it's every month. All things grazing. So many articles, and a lot of it is really innovative, leading edge stuff. So if you're into the grazing thing with cattle or sheep or goats or pigs or chickens, this is definitely a resource that I highly recommend. So look them up, Stockman Grass Farmer. Anyways, so I was really excited about these interviews. I tried to gear some of the questions specifically to the speaker I was talking to. And this one here, I was doing it with Joel Salatin, and we talked about the future of farming, especially when it comes to agricultural land, and should you own it, should you lease it, and so I kind of got some of his thoughts on that. I also asked him his definition of regenerative agriculture, because that can be a pretty hot topic word these days, but I don't feel like there's technically a definition, and he actually answered it in a way I wasn't expecting. He didn't relate it to the soil or the pollinators or the grass health. He actually related it to the succession of the farm and if the young people want to come back to the farm. So we talk about that a little bit. And we also, at the very end, he kind of gives us a little bit of advice on how to make a checklist of resilience for your farming operation. So hang on till the end to get that. Folks, I hope you enjoy. Please share this with anybody else who you think could get a little bit of information or relate to this in any way. I really, truly appreciate it. Thanks, guys. About 20 trends for the future of farming. Right. And one of them, I wrote down what you said. One of the trends was a quote: in the next 15 years, 50% of ag equity is going to change hands.
That's correct. So
what does this mean for the future of farms and farmers? What opportunities might present themselves?
Yeah, well, what this means, as these succession things happen, basically farmers are aging out, and so there's a couple scenarios, but the most common is that the children inherit it, but the children aren't farmers. Right. So the children are out looking. They're looking for someone. They're looking for someone to maintain the legacy, right? Mm-hmm. And so this is an unprecedented opportunity. I mean, I view it as big a thing culturally as the Homestead Act, as the Sooners, all right? In other words, this land is going to be available, and so anyone who knows how to make it beautiful and how to make a dime on it, you don't have to get rich, but how to make a life on it, is going to have an opportunity to get a hold of land that we haven't seen in a long, long time.
Land prices are getting higher and higher every year, and it's hard to make that amount back. So do you think that that's going to be...
No, I when I said get access to land, I didn't mean buy it. I think what we're going to see, Alan Nation talked about this years ago. He said he thought, of course he was always way ahead of his time, he thought that America was moving more to a European kind of I won't say feudal, because that always has all sorts of negative connotations, but well, just take Prince Charles, okay? Prince Charles has like 150 renters, and they do 99-year leases. So these leases actually get passed through the family. Prince Charles isn't out, farming, daily. And so, I was over there in Great Britain and spent the week with the guy that owns the Penguin Publishing House, and he has like 120. He owns like 10,000 acres, which is like half of the UK. But he has these 100 and 140, 150 farmers that rent anywhere from small acreage to a large acreage, but they're 99-year tenure. He showed me his spreadsheet. This guy's at 40 years, this guy's at 50 years, this guy's at 30 years, this guy's at, and in fact in Virginia, I don't know, about 15 years ago, Potomac Environmental Council, PEC, held their first tenure conference, bringing the idea of tenureage, this 99-year lease deal, to Virginia. I don't know anybody that's done it. I know that we've just signed our first 20-year lease, which seemed that's a long time. But if some of that can create here, if you've got a 99-year lease, you can build a shed. You can put in infrastructure. Yeah, absolutely, right. You can do some stuff, right. And so I just think there is a fluidity right now in this whole land thing. I mean, I have a friend that went to China, communist China. You can't own land there, but he had a 50-year lease on 1,000 acres for $50 a year. I have a group of farmers from Mongolia come. You can't own land there either. I said, if I wanted to farm in Mongolia, what would I do? They said, well, you present a business plan to the village elders, and if they like it, they'll, they say, well, yeah, you can go out and do that over here. And if they like what they see, then, you can expand, and they'll do it. I said, well, how much would that cost? They said, about 25 cents an acre. And you hear these stories from around the world, and you realize, look, I understand the American dream was, owning your own land, and that was something that was unusual in the world. I get that, okay, but there are other ways, and other cultures, other people have figured out ways to manage to caretake land that isn't just the family owning it. Right. And look, I love to have a hub that you own, but it can be small. It can be 4, 5, 6 acres. And that's where you have your corral and you have your freezers and you have some stuff, but otherwise then you just lease, and so I'll tell you what, I would love to see thousands of young people who love the land leasing these places, doing regenerative protocols, than see it all go to Bill Gates or the urban moneyed interests.
I'll just ask you this because I can't find one. I'm not sure there is one. What's your definition of regenerative agriculture? That's a hard question.
One for me is what do the children do when they hit 18? To me, that defines a lot of things. So many times we just think of regenerative as being soil-based or bumblebee-based or something, and I'm suggesting that if it's attractive to an 18-year-old, if an 18-year-old wants to be in part of it, wants to be involved with it, wants to do it vocationally for their career, then the wildlife's in place, the beauty's in place, the soil's in place, the economics are in place, the emotions are in place. All that's in place, and so I go way beyond the soil and the plants and the pollinators. I think it's ultimately about is it attractive to a person?
And that makes a lot of sense, because if we don't have the younger generations coming back to do this, okay, you do it for 10, 20 years, but if no one's going to take it over and keep doing those practices, what's the point?
That's exactly right. I mean, why? My dad was an accountant, and he did a lot of farm accounting in the area. I never knew who his clients were. It was just, I'm going to a client, but he would say, he advised these. He did a lot of, as they got older and older and older, and didn't have any kids that took an interest in it. He said, and weren't making any money, and he said, why don't you just sell it and get 3 or 4 acres, trade down. You can do your garden. You can have a cow. You can get your little agriculture fix on a very small acreage. Why do something? His phrase was, you might as well do nothing for nothing as something for nothing, and go ahead and let the next generation start. And so this whole succession angle has been a major interest of mine, primarily because ours was, and I think will be, very smooth. I'm so thankful Daniel has taken such an interest in the farm. So the blessing of my life is I could die tomorrow and I know there wouldn't even be a ripple here. That's pretty cool. And the other thing is I see is older farmers tend to be extremely lonely. The kids are gone, empty nesters, and you're hitting 65, 70, and you're getting up and you're getting on that tractor by yourself, and you're putting the grease gun in the fittings by yourself, and you're trying to fix a board on a fence by yourself, and you got to have two hands to hold up a board and to help push up a fence, things like that. There's a lot of things on a farm that four hands make a job way more efficient than two. And so just growing old alone, I think, is a real albatross around the average farmer's neck. And so as I've aged now, I didn't notice this as much when I was 40 and 50, but now that I'm in my mid 60s, I really recognize this, appreciating what a difference is in my life to be surrounded by these, 20s and 30s year olds, just the zest for living, the enthusiasm of life, that it's not all on me, and they push me and they ask questions and why do we do this? And
keeps you young.
It does. It keeps you, I got to keep up with them, I got to keep up with them. And what a blessing that is to be able to age with that level of daily enthusiasm under your wings.
Is there any advice you would give some of these younger generations or even the older ones, not that you're old, but that you're
I'm getting toward geezerhood. It's okay.
Any advice that you could give either side to help
okay,
this transition?
So here's the problem. The young people say they won't give me any responsibility. The old generation says, I can't trust you. I spent my life putting this together, amassing this wealth or this operation or whatever, making this, and you're whatever, you spend differently, you recreate differently, you entertain differently, you do, and I'm afraid you're going to lose it. Okay, so that is the honest tension between, as clear as I can make it. One doesn't want to release because of the risk. One wants more than they deserve, maybe. Okay, quicker than they deserve. And so, my advice is to chop it down into such small increments that you reduce the risk for the older generation. So if a young person wants to try something, see how small that can be. Can it be one? You don't have to try, for example, controlled grazing, managed grazing, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to try that on the whole 200 acres. You can do it on 2. Mm-hmm. And you can split that up. And okay, Dad, whenever I say we'll bring the cow herd into my little 2 acres here. Now suddenly, Dad can go on and do his thing, mm-hmm. and the young person can do an embryonic trial and establish credibility. So it can be done incremental. It can be done very, very small, and I think that helps to handle both issues. The young person has to show patience, to understand. Yep, I get it. I have to be patient, and I have to show my credibility. And the older generation has to not feel like they're going to sink the ship by giving some freedom to innovate. Mm-hmm. And so my advice is, whatever the young person wants to do, don't try to change the whole ship at once. Take a little piece and try it tiny first.
Yeah. Good advice. I like that a lot. I think the incremental thing, it gives both sides a chance to make that shift instead of trying to do it all at once. And I think that's really important for older folks to be thinking about that, because you don't want the older generations to pass away and the younger one to be like completely in the dark and like, what do I do now? So that needs to happen years before you're even thinking about that, really.
Yes, yeah.
If that's what both sides
Yeah,
agree.
my dad was really gifted at that. He reveled in letting me take the stage, and so many farmers they want to take the tractor to the grave with them. Bury me with my John Deere. And it's silly. I mean, we know it's silly. But that's the mentality of too many of these, and in fact that's actually normal. And I get that this farm is me. It's my persona. It's my whole existence. It's my identity. It's more than just whatever. No retiring person cares who takes over their station at the factory. Okay, but they do take care of who takes over the station. On the farm, because this is me. This is me. And so young, old people, the older generation needs to allow the young generation to make some decisions, do some leadership, and do some trials, some different things. And the young generation needs to appreciate what they're asking when they ask for freedom. They need to show themselves worthy. You need to earn that freedom. We tell our stewards here, we have these protocol sheets. I mean, goodness, to move a chicken shelter, we have a 5-page SOP, standard operating procedure, for moving a chicken shelter, right? And we always tell them, we say, look, do it our way first. You become proficient my way, then I'll listen to all your ideas about we could do it better this way, better that way, better that. But do it my way first. Be proficient there, and you earn the right to say, let's make a change.
Last question for you, real fast. What's one thing a grass farmer can do to prepare themselves or their farms for the future when it comes to these farming trends, that whether it be financial or getting a stronger community base, or what's something that you think is one thing that we should be thinking about right now? We'll let this guy go back first.
The first thing to be thinking about is getting out of the way of the four-wheeler. I would say that the number one thing is, and this is not easy, is to think about resilience. Make a checklist. What would it take for me to handle shocks, economic shocks, energy shocks, labor shocks, environmental shocks, tornadoes, hurricanes, droughts, blah, blah, blah. Make a checklist of resilience, and then just start chopping at them. It might be build a pond. It might be install some water. It might be cross fencing. It might be having brood cows instead of buying calves. It might be buying calves instead of having brood cows. But look at resilience, because ultimately the fragility is what kills us. So if we can build in resilience, we're in good shape.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your words of advice and your time, Joel. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's a delight, Becky.
Wow, that was a lot to digest right there in that interview, especially if you're somebody who is going through a farm transition or succession right now. It can be a really fragile topic to discuss with your family, but it's a super, super important one, especially to have years before and to have plans in place years before that time comes with the older generation. And that's just to help, the legacy of the farm moving forward in the smoothest way possible. So if you know anybody who's going through this time with the transition right now with the farming operation, or any business really, pass this video along to them. Maybe they can get a little something out of that, or help share it with the older generation so that they can get that conversation rolling. Folks, thank you again for listening, and until next time, happy grazing.